This short video will give an overview of the revised National Health and Medical Research Council Open Access Policy and how to use the open access publishing options provided by UWA Library in your publishing workflow. My name is Stephanie. I'm a senior librarian supporting UWA staff and researchers. In this video, I will cover the changes to the NHMRC Open Access Policy, the steps in a publishing workflow where authors can consider open access publishing options that are compliant with the policy, and where to find more information and contact UWA Library for support. On the 20th of September 2022, the NHMRC announced increased support for open access publishing through a revised open access policy. There are two important aspects to the policy. Publications supported by the NHMRC must be made open access immediately on publication. This is a change from the previous policy, where open access copies of publications could have an embargo period of up to 12 months after first publication. Publications must be licensed with a Creative Commons CC BY license, which I will discuss in more detail soon. The NHMRC also encourage publishing research data. See the UWA Library's Research Data Management Guide for options to make research data openly accessible. So, when does this policy come into effect? The policy is effective immediately for new grants. It applies to all publications supported by all new NHMRC grants awarded after the 20th of September 2022. For existing NHMRC grants awarded prior to the 20th of September 2022, the previous policy will apply to any papers published up until the 31st of December 2023. Papers published on or after the 1st of January 2024 will be covered by the updated open access policy. When UWA authors publish papers funded by the NHMRC, there are a few stages in the publishing workflow where you can consider the best options for your paper which comply with the NHMRC's open access policy. When considering where to publish NHMRC-supported papers, there are three main options available to UWA authors, which are compliant with the NHMRC's open access policy. The first two options involve open access publishing in journals. Publishing in a full open access journal is of course compliant with the NHMRC's policy, as long as authors apply a CC BY license to the paper. Open access journals, sometimes called gold or diamond open access journals, do not charge any subscription or payment to read any articles in the journal. Some open access journals charge authors a fee to publish in these journals, known as an article processing charge or APC. I will discuss the CC BY license and funding APCs in more detail soon. Recently, UWA has signed read and publish agreements with some publishers. Read and publish agreements take the library's existing expenditure on journal subscriptions and repurpose it to also cover publishing open access in that publisher's journals. If an article is covered by the agreement, then authors are not charged APCs to publish their papers open access in these paid subscription journals. It's still important for NHMRC-funded papers to apply a CC BY license to the paper. Each publisher has slightly different conditions on the read and publish agreement regarding article types and the number of articles that can be covered in a year. Details of the read and publish agreements and lists of journal titles which are included can be found on the UWA Library's Open Access Toolkit. You may have decided to publish your paper in an open access journal which charges an article processing charge, APC, to publish an article. UWA memberships provide discounts on APCs when publishing in certain journals. See the UWA Library's Open Access Toolkit for a list of APC discounts. The NHMRC's Open Access Policy allows the use of grant funding to pay the costs of open access publishing, including APCs. Although it's not possible to specify these publishing costs in an initial funding application, as the exact costs for APCs, if any, won't be known at that time. The third open access publishing option for UWA authors is the UWA Repository. If you have selected to publish your paper in a closed subscription journal and the final published version of the paper cannot be made open access, most publishers allow the author-accepted manuscript to be published in a university's repository. The author-accepted manuscript, or AAM, is the version of the paper after peer review and copy editing. In this version, the text and content of the paper is finalised, but it is prior to the journal applying their own proprietary styling and formatting to the paper. Publishing an AAM in the UWA Repository is a great option, as it is compliant with the NHMRC's Open Access Policy and there is no cost to UWA authors. To ensure compliance with all aspects of the NHMRC's Open Access Policy, select CC BY when uploading the AAM, and ensure the publisher do not require an embargo on the AAM being released. These 2 points will be discussed in more detail next. If you are planning to publish the AAM in the UWA repository, in preparation for this, NHMRC require authors to assert that the AAM will be licensed under a CC BY license when submitting the initial manuscript to the journal. NHMRC have provided wording for authors to use. This ensures licensing arrangements are in place prior to any publishing agreement. Also ensure to check your publishing contract before signing it. Some journals' standard policy is for AAMs to be embargoed for a certain period rather than released at the same time as the final published paper. Negotiate with the journal publisher and request no embargo to be included in your publishing contract. UWA's Research Integrity Policy provides example wording that could be included in a publishing contract. The NHMRC's Open Access Policy also requires licensing NHMRC-funded papers under a CC BY license. Creative Commons licenses are internationally recognised licenses which copyright holders can apply to works, allowing reuse under certain conditions. The CC BY license is the most open license, allowing reuse, sharing and remixing of content as long as the original author is credited. The BY aspect of the license refers to this attribution requirement. This part of the NHMRC policy applies to all publishing options, whether publishing open access in a journal or uploading the AAM to the UWA repository. A Creative Commons CC BY license ensures that the true intent of open access can be achieved. Papers published under CC BY licenses are not only free to read, but others are free to build upon the work, reusing and adapting it. If publishing open access in a journal, ensure the journal's policy allows use of this license when signing the publishing agreement. The NHMRC have also acknowledged that a CC BY license may not be appropriate for some research involving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In consultation with any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples participating in research, it may be appropriate to apply the more restrictive CC BY ND license, which does not allow derivatives of the work. This means if the research is reproduced, it must be reproduced in full, rather than small parts of the work being remixed into another work. Traditional knowledge labels can also be considered. It is also worth briefly discussing methods of publishing or sharing papers which would not be compliant with the NHMRC's policy. Hybrid journals, if not covered by read and publish agreements, do not meet the intent of the NHMRC's policy. Hybrid journals charge subscription fees to read journal articles, whilst also charging APCs if authors wish to publish individual papers open access. Instead of paying an APC to a hybrid journal, it is recommended to upload the AAM of the paper to the UWA repository. And scholarly communication networks like ResearchGate are not appropriate to be the primary site for publication of research. Regardless of where your paper is published and the method used for making the paper open access, UWA authors should add the details of NHMRC-funded publications to the UWA repository within 3 months of publication. This means adding the metadata, information about the publication such as the title, authors, the journal the paper was published in, and relevant field of research codes. The UWA Research Integrity Policy already requires UWA researchers to record publications in the repository. See UWA Repository FAQs for instructions on adding papers. I hope this video helps UWA authors understand the requirements of the NHMRC's Open Access Policy and how the options available at UWA can be considered throughout your publishing workflow. There is further information available online. UWA Library's online Open Access Toolkit has information about funder mandates, publishing in open access journals, and the details of UWA's Read and Publish agreements. To learn more about how to publish open access copies of your papers through the UWA Repository, please see the repository FAQs. UWA librarians are available to answer questions about the repository, open access publishing, and Read and Publish agreements. Please contact us by email.